A war fought in one of the harshest environments any war has ever taken place in the heart of Africa, full of impassable brush, scorching heat, suffocating humidity, wild animals, poisonous snakes, from tall mountains to flat plains, from deep African bush to urban centers. This war was called the Rhodesian Bush War. In the early phases of the Bush War, a lot of soldiers were given World War II surplus for footwear, problem being that those boots were way outdated, heavy, hot, and absolutely terrible for the African terrain. So much so that soldiers even opted to wear their standard issue physical training high-top sneakers over these boots because sneakers had the distinct advantage of high agility instead of these heavy, stiff World War II boots. They were really fast to put on and take off, unlike the tall lace-up boots. They were super lightweight and breathable, the sole was quiet and didn't clog up with mud, and they were significantly cooler and lighter in that scorching African heat. But they did not have the ability to tuck their pants in to prevent bugs and thorns and stuff getting to the inside of their shoes. They had hardly any support, zero protection, very little grip, and they desperately needed a boot that could do both. So they went to work to make the perfect African war boot, and with the help of the SADF recce's, the result was a boot that blended the best of World War II traditional tech with modern material advantages. And in the mid to late 1960s, the Rhodesian lightweights or Bush War boots were born, one of the most pivotal pieces of equipment for the individual soldiers fighting the war. So we're gonna cut these boots in half and run through all of our tests to really identify the 7 things that made this boot one of the most unique and capable war boots ever made. And there's one feature in this boot that honestly I have no idea why they don't have them in modern boots, because it's actually shockingly useful. Starting with number 1, the leather upper. So instead of that weak canvas that the sneakers had that was breathable, they went with a 2 to 2.3 millimeter thick leather that was strong enough to protect you from the environments and thorns and also support your ankle a lot more than the sneaker did. Put it in perspective, here's the results for some of our canvas puncture tests versus this leather. It took 105 pounds to puncture through, but leather's not nearly as breathable or as cool as canvas. So unlike the majority of World War II boots that were fully lined, they wanted these boots to be absolutely stripped down to the bare necessities, and that's why number 2, there's absolutely no lining in this except for right in the toe. It's the smallest lining I've ever seen in any boot ever. Like so much so that when we first got this pair, I didn't even know what it was for. I was like, what is this toe stitch for? It's like, it looks like it's supposed to have a toe cap, but it doesn't. And so their whole goal was to make this boot more flexible and lighter and cooler for the African heat, and removed every bit of the lining except for right at the toe. But removing the full lining has its own set of problems, because without a lining, the toe has a tendency to fully collapse, causing it to rub on your toes, causing blisters. And if you've seen any of our war videos, it just immediately leads to trench foot or infection. And they did 2 things to mitigate that. 1, they just really emphasized the use of socks to absorb that extra sweat. And 2, they put that bare minimum lining and toe structure just in the toe. Most boots at bare minimum have the whole vamp lined, and then the toe stiffener is sandwiched in between the outer leather and that lining leather. But without a lining, that edge of the toe stiffener would easily roll up and detach. So they decided to line it with a little canvas lining and sew it right over the toe, double stitched, so you at least had something to prevent that lining from rolling up, to get some of the benefits of having a structured toe without the flaws of not having a lining on the inside. And that's why you have these 2 stitches that don't look like they sew anything together. And I actually really love this stitch, because to me it's kind of a story in a stitch, because it represents what this boot is. It's simple, it's function first and foremost and only. The boot breaker system has been the surprise success of all the products that we launched this year, and I think it's because it was needed. You know, I think people really needed this thin little 2 millimeter bit of foam that just helps you break in your boots, adds a little bit of squish to your heritage boots without changing your size, without destroying any of the value that you get from a heritage boot, and somehow nobody did it. And because of that, we expanded out into some leather boot breakers, because people are like, make it out of leather. Like, we could do that. We got the dies. People are like, we want a thicker one. And I was like, I do too, actually, because like I could use a little thicker one. And then people are like, we want an even thicker one. Give us a big old mattress to put in our boots. And I was like, we could probably find it. And you're in luck, because we sourced this thick mattress of an insole. If you want tons of squish in your shoes or boots, or you want to take up a ton of room and have a lot of squish, if you want to run like a little thin leather insole on top of a lot of squish, you can combine the 2. And that's kind of been the fun of the boot breaker system, is it's half driven by what you guys want and what you see is needed. Because honestly, I thought this was the only thing we were going to launch, and now we've launched 3 different thicknesses of leather and now 3 different thicknesses of foam, because they seem to be useful. And I think sometimes when it comes to product design, simplicity rules overall. Sometimes you just don't need to overdo it. Sometimes there's a simple need in the market, and that's exactly what the boot breakers were. So check them out below. Check out the new super thick daddies and add some squish to your life, add a little heritage to your life, and check them out below. But one thing they did not skip on is number 3, and that's the leather insole. And this is something that is held over from the World War II boots because of how important it is. Because leather is very expensive and a very scarce resource in war, but they still elected to use that big slab of veg tan leather in the insole. And the importance of that leather insole is echoed even in the US's boot of the time with the jungle boot. And why do military still use that leather insole? Because it's extremely durable, because that internal fiber structure, it breaks into the shape of your foot, giving you comfort for those long walks and treks. It resists rot and smelling, and to this day, it's the material of choice for the highest quality footwear in the world. But one thing they did not hold over from World War II was the leather outsoles that were on almost every single World War II boot, because they were super slippery. They had to put hobnails into them, and because of rubber being cheaper and a lot easier to manufacture, number 4, they went with this flat rubber sole because they wanted the quietness and traction of their rubber sneaker soles, but they also wanted them to be less trackable because the boots of the time had big chunky lugs, leaving big obvious footprints, and they would clog up full of mud. And so they made these soles completely flat, and the individual soldiers would go so far as to take their knife and trim off that hard edge so they're even less trackable. And this also made the soles last longer. It made them easier to resole, easier to repair, even field repair if they had to, with the help of number 5, the stitch down construction. And the unique thing about a stitch down construction for the time is that the big structural stitches that hold the top of the boot to the bottom of the boot were all flipped to the outside, instead of most boots of the time was they were all Goodyear welts, so they had it tucked to the inside. There was an independent welt, stitches going on the inside, stitches going down, and this stitch down style of construction is so versatile and so durable that the heaviest duty boots made in the United States and the Pacific Northwest brands still use a stitch down construction in the toe. But to me, the defining feature of this boot is number 6, the double buckle strap. And these double buckle straps were used in World War II boots because it allowed you to tuck your pants into your boot to prevent rock, debris, and bugs to get into the inside of your boots. But more importantly, it allowed you to actually tuck your pants into your boot without needing to unlace your entire boot, tuck your pants in and lace them back up. All you had to do was keep your boots tied, undo the 2 buckles, tuck your pants in, buckle it back up, and you're good to go. So for a war in Africa, you can see why they would want the versatility to be able to cuff their pants up to let their legs breathe and cool down a little bit. But if you got into the thick brush, you'd hurry, tuck your pants in to prevent all that from getting to the inside of your boots. And this made the boots a lot easier to put on and take off, a lot more like the sneakers, because the laces didn't go all the way up 8 or 10 inches. They just went up 7 or 8 eyelets. So you get the protection of a boot, but the speed of putting on a pair of sneakers. You get the ability to tuck in your pants without needing to untie your boots. It's actually quite brilliant. And the reason they stopped doing it, at least for the US World War II boots, is for the paratroopers, the paracords would get stuck in this. And I just assume that's why they quit using it, and maybe it used up too much leather. But after I tried this a few times with this boot, up on hiking, trying some different stuff, I immediately saw that there's real world value for this in 2025, whether it's work or hiking, but especially hunting. Because it'd be so nice to be able to do that. Just tuck your pants in and out, to actually have a way to seal off pants in your body from the outside world. And for me specifically, bear hunting in the Pacific Northwest, you just come home and there's ticks all over you. And a lot of times they'll start at your feet and try to sneak in and go up your pants into your warmer areas. And so I don't know why they don't put these on modern boots. I feel like a modern boot could do this in a really cool modern way and really be effective. But as far as I've ever seen, there's no modern boots that have a double buckle strap. And it's so useful. I really don't know why. And this little feature harkens back all the way to World War II. It's part of American history. So I'd love to see a modern boot company revive and resurrect this double buckle and perfect it for modern boots. I would buy it. I think it's a good idea. So now let's cut one of these boots in half to see how close we actually got it to the original, and to show you what that 7th feature is that made this boot so unique. I bet you didn't know, on July 24th, 1847, after trekking hundreds of miles, pioneers crested over the mountains right over here into this Salt Lake Valley where our shop's at today. We call it Pioneer Day. It's basically our second 4th of July. So to celebrate July 24th, or Pioneer Day, we're doing 24% off the entire site for 24 hours. So get it before it's gone. Happy Pioneer Day. All right, we got it cut in half, so now let's see what's inside. So what is that 7th feature? It's this wooden shank. And when we were remaking this, I was like, do we do the wooden shank or do we do like a steel shank? And we both agreed that if we're gonna make it original, we have to make it original, because this wooden shank actually has some value because it's significantly lighter than metal. It still gives you the support you need, but it's a lot more flexible. And because it's sandwiched in between 2 rubber layers, you literally have to try to break this. And the positioning of the shank, where it's tucked so far back, it's a lot stronger than you think. It's nowhere near as strong as a steel shank. And if leather was a scarce and rare resource, steel and metal was even more. And yet they still had to do something to make this more supportive than a sneaker, more like a boot. And this once again kind of bridges that gap between a sneaker and a boot. And to me, the coolest thing of all this is all the aspects of this boot have evolved with time into modern boots. And the fact that Jim Green, being made in South Africa, basically makes this exact same boot to this day 50 years later is a huge testament to how well designed this boot was. And now you really understand why it was so effective. And this is the perfect example of how, through the crucible of war, being designed by the guys who are actually on the ground fighting with the sole focus on functionality and survival, what that can actually produce. So if you want a pair of Bush War boots, if you want to feel a little bit of piece of history, and you want all the distinct advantages that this boot had, I worked with Jim Green to make this as close to an exact replica as humanly possible, all the way down to that double stitch that really tells the whole story of this boot. It's about as true to the original and as close to the original as you can get. So check them out below. There's only 600 available, and thank you guys for watching this. It's really fun to be able to take some of the forgotten about and neglected stories of war and to really be able to tell what the individual soldiers were going through and how rapid development through survival and death can result in a boot that stands the test of time. And to actually utilize some of the old school military technology that, for as far as I understand, there's no reason why they don't have these on modern boots. So thank you guys for watching. I'll put the link to this video where we cut this one in half and told a little bit of the Bush War story. And if these are sold out by the time you're watching this and you want a pair, just get on that email list that's also linked below, because we might do another drop depending on how successful these are and how much interest and how much value people actually find in this boot. You never know, might do another drop. So huge shout out to Jim Green for being willing to do this little project with me, and thank you guys for the support of these collaborations, because it's so cool to be able to resurrect 60-year-old boots and really figure out like, oh, this is why they did this, there's true functionality, why do they not make this anymore? It's my favorite thing to do. So thank you guys, see ya.